Welcome back to BLOCKTV. It's time now for Traders Take, where we take a deep dive into the markets of the week and see what's churning, turning, and spinning across the crypto sphere. And as always, we are joined by our very own technical analyst, Joe Saz, here to break it all down. Now, Joe, 9,700 or so has a pretty good ring to it. But I'd argue, and I think you'd be inclined to agree with me, 10,000 sounds a little bit better. Now, Joe, when are we seeing that clean 10,000?
Well, all right. I'm gonna put an asterisk on this because I feel like it's not quite there. We have hit 10K on CME futures, and we'll take a look at that right now. In fact, there's actually something very interesting that I found on the CME caps that I'll share in just a second. But it seems like, you know, the CME money is kind of accepting this price, right? Now, I've been talking about Bitcoin having been in a disbelief run, phase of the bull market. And I think that's still happening right now. We're still getting these disbelief kind of level sell-offs. There's also one other thing that's important to note is, I mean, the majority of the selling was here at the bottom, and $3.5 million were liquidated that minute. This is Bitcoin US dollar on the 1 minute chart here. This is clearly, to me, a shakeout. A 1% move, anyone that was 100x up here, anyone that's 50x up here is now gone. So we still have degenerate gamblers playing this market. And as long as that's happening, we're going to get shakeouts all up along the way. Now, it's great to have this nice little pullback, you know, shake some, dumbass degenerate gamblers out of the market, get this thing back kicking up. And you can clearly see we have a lot of support building in the 1 and 2% aggregations. Bears have very slightly taken the 5% aggregation. It's likely because of the static sell wall up here somewhere. So I'm not really too worried about losing the 5% aggregation, which is also visible here very slightly. We're just very nearing the value of 0, which would mean that the order book ratio buys to sells is equal. So right now, 2.5% band in control, 1% band is kind of a fight flipping back and forth. 5% band we've lost over the past 30 minutes, but I think we can get it back here soon. So I'm very bullish right now. I'm just so bullish. I've been bullish for quite some time. These little shakeouts have been nothing more than shakeouts to me. I am visualizing all these little, you know, downside moves, these gnarly wicks. I mean, let's look at this actually. Let's look at this on a time scale that people would trade. This is just a big wick. You know, this thing just killed 3.6 million buyers. And then the candle following that, 101K. So, I mean, this is clearly a shakeout. We obviously have bulls that are rejecting these lower values. So this was just a shakeout. I'm not too concerned. Back-to-back reversal hammers. This thing's going back up. And I have no doubt that we're hitting 10K soon. I have a slight doubt that we'll hit it today, but I do think that we will. And let's take a look at that for a second, because CME has hit 10K, and so they peaked out at $10,000 and $10,010. But this is something everyone talks about, CME gaps, right? And this one was a pretty small gap right here between the top of this wick to the bottom of this wick. Very small difference, right? And there's a couple more along the way as we made our ascent here. There's a couple small gaps, and I'm not necessarily the gap expert here, but we do have instances where it can take quite some time for a gap to fill. And here's a prime example. It took quite a number of months here for this gap right there to fill. Now, people that believe in these gaps are very serious about them. And if they're very serious about them, then they should be very serious about this gap up here. This gap up here is probably my favorite gap, where this gap is around $11,800. So for any CME gap, you know, students out there, this is a pretty interesting gap here. And I've heard about this gap down in the 7K range, this gap in the 8K range. I haven't heard anyone talking about this gap in the 11.8, you know? So it's like, I don't know how selective these people are in terms of what gap they want to view, but we have an 11K gap. If gaps are, you know, that much of a certainty, then I have no doubt in my mind that Bitcoin's going up that high anyways. But, you know, we definitely have a gap up there. Gaps tend to fill. We definitely have about 2 gaps on the downside. We have one at, let's see here, where was it? Maybe down a bit lower. All right, there's the bottom. Okay, so this is the first gap right there. It's very slight from a high here of 685 and a low of 7,700. So $15 gap here, and then we have a high here of 85.40, low at 85.75, so a $35 gap here, and this about $35 gap was filled. So I don't know how selective you have to be with your gaps in terms of CME stuff, but I now have 3 gaps that are unfilled. I'm not sure what to do with it, but you know, it can go. We can go months without filling a gap. In this case, it's been half a year. So I mean, this thing I would assume is, you know, I just think it's interesting. Now, so we have broken 10K on CME. I think it's likely that the market's going to follow that here pretty soon. We did have an instance here where we had a high of 99.45 yesterday. So I mean, CME is quite bullish as well. So I'm not really going to assume too much. I think the market is in disbelief. Obviously, there's one pool of traders trading CME, a different pool of traders, 10-year-old kids, probably half of them, trading on BitMEX. So obviously that market's going to be a little bit more wild, a little bit more emotional. So I just think it's a matter of time before we catch up to a 10K figure that traditional money has accepted as a reality already. So but we're just a little...
I want to ask you then, Joe, I mean, look, how far do you see this current bull run going, as it were? I mean, like, is this the straight shot to the halving, beyond, up to the 100K, whatever else it might be that so many in the market is starting to see as inevitabilities? Or do we see that pullback coming in the future? I mean, looking into the sort of medium to long term, do we see that more significant pullback coming, or is it a straight shot from here?
So I think it's mostly a straight shot. I'm not talking about, you know, 20-30% pullbacks until the halving or roundabout there. It could happen as early as April. It can happen, you know, we do have tax season, so who knows? There could be a lot more upward pressure on the price through tax season as we're entering the proximity, closing that distance to the halving. Historically, we've had one scenario where we went sideways and then vertical. And then we've had another scenario where we had a big, you know, we went vertical for about 3 weeks and a number of months before the halving. And then we had a deep fall off. I'm talking, even the wick was pretty wild. It was probably closer to like that 30% or so drop, maybe even a bit more. So I believe that is on the table. But this halving lands early May. We have tax returns coming in. We have tons of reasons to also say, all right, well, you know, are we really concerned about this having a steep downside move, because there might be tons and tons of money still entering the market. So I'm kind of like waiting on that a little bit. I want to keep getting closer, but we are, in my opinion, on a straight path up to the halving. 14K5 is my low target by April. At this point, it's looking like a low target. But overall, to answer your question, I think we have a couple of pullbacks along the way, but I believe this is the bull market that's going to take us to 6 figures. My intense bullish projection is around $300,000 Bitcoin until this market bubble bursts. So I think we're going to have another bubble, probably going to be 2 to 3 years from now. I think Bitcoin's going to break the 6 figures by far, and I think 300K is my estimation. Probably more like the mid 300Ks, but I think this is the bull run that takes us to, you know, those beautiful numbers up there.
That's a bold prediction there, Joe, but we'll have to see how that one does play out. That's a as we hate to say the cliche in media, but that's a time will tell scenario. So instead, let's look as well at the moment, because obviously Bitcoin, unlike 2019, is far from leading this particular run. So many coins out there are performing. I think it's well and truly fair to say alt season is highly underway. We're seeing those swings, those roundabouts, those massive moves in various alts. Joe, what are you watching out for at the moment? What do you think has the staying power, and what's just getting a quick pump before an ultimate dump?
Let's see. You know, the thing is, let's take a quick look at dominance before we start taking laps around the alt sphere. Oh, where's my dominance? There we go. Bitcoin's still down to 65.68%. Yeah, I mean, Asher, you got 50% of alt season nail on the head there. I would like to see a little bit more wild action. Let's pop our heads into XRP. This thing's been taken off. Yeah, it could very well be. Blew through a 9 cell, killed it completely. Tezos, which we took a look at a couple days ago, 9 still, kind of ignoring this. I mean, we pumped 11%. Now, alt season to me is not an 11% pump. This could very well be a choppy water scenario for easily another 6 months. This has more of a look and feel of silent money kind of playing ball here. Obviously, this wick to the downside is clearly showing that someone wanted to dump their bag. Someone might have been sitting on Tezos for a long time. This might have been like a bear market buyer, like a bull market top buyer. That's a very, very long hold there. So I think we're looking at, one of the ones that I'm really paying attention to is going to be ADA. Let's do ADA BTC just for curiosity's sake. Still not it. I'm expecting a lot more out of these alts. Asher, I want to see 300% moves. I want to see 100% moves. And let's take a quick look on CoinMarketCap and see how many are responding to this kind of action. We're really, see, this isn't really alt season to me just yet. We got 50% of the equation here. We're talking 14% moves. This is dust. Not a big deal to me. So, with that being said, I think alt season is definitely going to arrive. It's just a matter of when. And I think for the next few months, Bitcoin has this tendency to have kind of a silent money entry into the market. There's, usually it's kind of a flat area. Sometimes it pumps. Sometimes it kind of just, channels. Let's say it peaks out, it comes back down. And then there's just a constant re-entry of money coming into the market. And those are going to be people throwing maybe $1,000 into a few different alts or tons of different alts. And basically at that point, we're going to get that skyrocket move. Someone's going to kick it off. FOMO's going to step in. There's a general economic concept at play here that I think is very important to view, right? As the cost of the superior good goes up in value, the superior good being Bitcoin, the demand for inferior goods goes up in value. So as the demand for a finite inferior good goes up in value, the price is going to go up. So I think the general economic concept has more to do with psychology here, and that's what's going to pump these alts. It's going to be people saying, I missed the boat on Bitcoin, but I see this, shitcoin over here, never heard of it. I know nothing about blockchain tech, but it's valued at a fraction of a penny or pennies or dollars versus tens of thousands of dollars or whatever Bitcoin is at that point in time. And that's going to be what drives the altcoin market. And that's what drove the altcoin market last time. So, or at least largely in part. So I'm expecting that kind of play out. And in order for alt season to really kick off, it's not silent money that's going to kick it off. It's going to be the global phenomenon type demand. And I think that economic theory is going to be the play out as to how all this, all these moves are set in motion.
All right, but then do you see, looking at any particular alt out there, because it doesn't seem, the moves we are having, whether we talk about, 20, 30% moves as opposed to 100% moves, but some of the moves we are seeing don't seem to be driven by fundamentals necessarily. Some do, some don't. But let's even look at sort of, a top 5 situation. We've seen ETH and XRP jump considerably recently. Bitcoin Cash as well has had some pretty big moves. Some could argue there are some fundamentals underpinning that, but it does seem to be, at least in some part of a hype cycle as we build, sort of what you were alluding to there, Joe. But does this continue? Does this sustain? Even just on raw trading instincts, emotions removed, is there anything in you that says it's worth putting some money into there and, diversifying a portfolio, at least in the short to medium term?
Yeah, let's say, as a trader, you're asking me, I'm channeling I'm ditching the Bitcoin maximalism right now. I'm just going to focus on the trader. The trader in me says, absolutely, there's going to be demand for these assets and they're going to go up in value. Having a basket as a trader to make more Bitcoin is not the end of the world, because you're definitely going to get your hits. So I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to take a little bit more, though. Right now, what we have is an influx of money from participants in the community still. Even as wild as these upside swings are, I think this is just sideline money. I don't think this is new money. This isn't grandparents asking how to buy Bitcoin. Of course, there's a little bit more interest than there might have been at 3,000 or something like that, but or 6,000 or whatever point we made it. 14K didn't kick off much FOMO at all, other than inside the market space. Maybe some external participants, but I still think that we're a little bit away from that. We need another all-time high, and we probably need to break that all-time high, probably by a long shot, probably like, a few thousand to $10,000 before people start reconsidering Bitcoin. Then we'll start getting those memes of people talking about, quit my day job, it turned 10 into 12 bucks. That's the market cycle that we've been waiting for so long here. So I think that we need more money from the outside. I think that money from the outside isn't going to come in until Bitcoin reaches the headlines again in mainstream media. And everything that happens in the alt space in the meantime is probably going to be just as isolated as what's happening in Bitcoin. Or it's clear, it's obvious to us that Bitcoin is losing dominance, and obviously money is floating floating the boats of the altcoin space. But this is happening while Bitcoin price is going up. So we know that money is going into Bitcoin, but we also know that money is flooding and funneling into alts, causing a 5% decrease in Bitcoin dominance over the past couple of months relative to an increase in Bitcoin value. So it's really important to make that distinction. There's definitely demand for alts from people inside the community. If my grandma comes asking about a crypto, it's going to be Bitcoin. It's probably going to be something like that. Now, that's why I believe that this is inside money funneling into alts while Bitcoin is going up, because obviously the demand for Bitcoin due to the halving is stirring up the hype and causing people to buy. So we're still in the middle of a small island. We're still a community buying our spending our pocket money on these assets. I still think we need that external wave though to really kick this thing into overdrive, and that's the alt season that I want to see. And the Bitcoin run up too.
Certainly so. I'll have to see if that new money does start to flood in, if those fundamentals do change, but it seems 2020 is really kicking off with all guns blazing and potentially straight to the moon. All right, Joe Saz, I want to thank you so much for having to break down this bullish market. Exciting times ahead. We'll have plenty more to discuss, so stay with us at blocktv.com for all the latest in news and analysis. I'm Asher Westrop Evans. Thanks for watching.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.